clapperboard. This is
Nice.
just so I can sync everything up.
Hell yeah, dude.
Makes it just a tad bit easier, but anyhow, so go ahead and introduce yourself. If you just want to give your first name, that's fine. If you want to do your last name, that's fine too. But and maybe mention what your role or title or duty was within these programs. Also, look at me. Pretend like this is a third person.
So okay, so I'm not looking at the camera.
Yeah, they call it staring down the lens, or at least that's what I was told. But so it's almost like imagine like the audience member is here, a third audience member is here, but this is our conversation between you and I. So starting off with, so go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, so my name is Oki. I have recently uncovered memories of myself, and I realized that one, I was used as a child in the secret space program. Namely, it was Monarch that pretty much they. So it started from before I was even born, where they genetically enhanced my DNA, and they took the DNA from my father and they put it in my mother, and they were keeping tabs on me. And by the time I was 6, I was put into a special program run by Monarch. The leader of Monarch, Paul Serene, also known as Kevin Spacey's clone, was pretty much observing this whole thing and actually had a hands-on role in my development as well as many other children. This all took place in an underground city in Toronto, Canada, that's owned by Monarch. It's a deep underground military city there that they have. And I also am aware of being abducted around the time I was, from the time I was 16 to 20, many times. I remember white flashing lights and missing time, and then waking up 8 minutes later and realizing that I have these wounds on me, and what I realized pretty much is that they used that opportunity to clone me, and there's a lot of my clones out there that actually they have parts of my consciousness within them, and they're being used as slaves for these corporations, these space corporations within the secret space program. So it extends much further than just Monarch. These are joint ventures with Monarch, with Solar Warden, and one of my clones actually is in a parallel universe. It's in, and the Umbrella Corporation actually controls that particular clone, where it's fighting actually zombies and vampires in that parallel universe.
Okay, great, thank you. So how about we start off with, can you give us some information on why you think Monarch targeted you? I mean, you could maybe go into your genetic background,
Yeah.
which is unusual in that I'm not casting judgment. I'm just saying that in this field, typically the SSP, they target people who are white because they're Germans and they're basically Nazis. So in your perspective, I mean, you were targeted by Monarch, but not necessarily Nazi groups, but maybe you can go a little bit about if you have German heritage, because you could still be black and still have German heritage too, or something in those lines.
So it's interesting actually that Monarch targeted me when I was a child, and what typically doesn't happen is that actually it's actually people of my particular complexion, they don't actually typically get chosen for the secret space program, but from what I'm aware of, I don't actually have any German heritage. It's probably why Kruger hasn't really had much of any interest in inducting me into the secret space program on their side. But from what I understand, in my past life, I was Yasuke, the Black Samurai. So in the 1500s in Japan, I was actually taken by Jesuits to Japan. And I was inducted pretty much into the Oda clan because the shogun of the Oda clan took a particular interest in me, because right now I don't have the exact same physical attributes as I did when I was Yasuke, but when I was Yasuke, I was a very tall, strong man, and pretty much what the Shogun told me when I was Yasuke was that I had the physical endowment of 10 other soldiers. So, and also I really I had a great affinity for combat and for samurai training. So I suppose that's what made me genetically significant and desirable to these space corporations, particularly Monarch. Actually, I didn't actually mention this, but I was under the direct tutelage of Paul Serene, Kevin Spacey's clone. There was 12 children who were trained directly under him, including myself and the YouTuber Mr. Beast. So we spent years being trained by him, but actually what I realized later on is that they wiped all my memories after that training session, and they replaced them with me going to a regular boarding school. And I think I told you one time we were doing, James, a regression hypnosis session, and I explained to you that my time at boarding school when I was around 6 to I think it was like 13 or something like that. That time at the boarding school that they implanted in my mind, those memories are all grayed out. They don't feel like real memories. And I think I've heard of other people experiencing this when those memories are implanted into their brains.
Okay. And I guess I could add this. This may not necessarily go on, probably won't go on the video, but typically, at least what I heard, black people require a different protocol of brainwashing, and they have pretty much everything standardized, so it just makes it more complicated. So that's why they target people with blonde hair, blue eyes. It has nothing. I'm not being racist or anything. I'm just saying. Just anyway, that's for your information there.
Okay.
But okay, so you said you remember cloning labs, maybe in a facility, the Monarch facility. How about you describe? You know what? Maybe we'll start with this question next. If you have any information on it, do you know what starseed groups you might be connected with?
Oh,
And repeat that as a full question.
I am not entirely sure about. So here's the thing. I've heard that many super. Give me one sec. Let me phrase it in a way that. Okay, so there's often when people talk about super soldiers, they people who are inducted into the SSP, taken. Honestly, that's the proper choice of words. These people, they are gifted in ways that makes them an intuitive empath, or, for example, they belong to certain starseed groups. I personally am not sure. I think and what I have to do in the future is do more like hypnotic regressions and work with more people. But I do know that I'm fairly certain of this, that I am at least have a quarter Anunnaki in my DNA. So not necessarily a starseed, but I do have extraterrestrial DNA within me.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's go back to the actual facilities. Maybe, I have written here maybe the Monarch facility or the cloning labs. If you don't remember either that, or whatever you do remember, and answer the full question.
So, pretty much by the time that I was 6, I was the way that. So what? Let me just start from the beginning. Actually, what happened from the time that I was born to the time I was 6, I would have men visit my house, and they would do tests, lots and lots of tests, and so these tests would they would do is they would come, they would pretty much take my blood, they would have me do various physical tests and mental tests that test my capabilities. And the way that my parents explained it was that this happens to every kid. But of course, it doesn't, right? But that was the way that they tried to normalize it in order to not make me afraid. So by the time I was 6, my parents, and I think that they do believe this. I don't think that they were handlers in any way. I think that they were actually kind of naive about what everything was going on. The way that they were explained about why I was taken when I was 6 and put into the Monarch program in the underground city in Toronto was that they thought I was going to a boarding school for the gifted. And this boarding school was nothing of any sort. It was a grueling, disgusting training facility to train ruthless killers. The people there, the scientists, if you can even call them that, they pretty much utilized every method they could to use MK Ultra programming in order to split our personalities, to traumatize us, and to create killing machines. I was always incredibly psychically gifted. I remember when I was a child, actually, that one day my mom came home and all the spoons in the kitchen were completely bent, and I wasn't even home that day. Also, one time, a babysitter when I was 2, she quit because I telepathically communicated with her saying that I want to play with my toy. So Monarch was aware of this. They programmed me to be this, and that's why by the time I was 6, until roughly I believe it was until the time I was 13, I was trained in this Monarch program. So I remember the first day of orientation, Paul Serene, Kevin Spacey's clone. Last time I'll say that because obviously it's Paul Serene. He was the one who was doing the introduction during the orientation. All of these kids taken from around the world were put into this room in the underground base, and we were, being introduced to the program, and it all seemed normal at the time. But then, what happened is he had 2 guards bring another child on stage, and then what they did is they shot that child in front of all of us in order to make sure that we know exactly what we're getting into, that these people are not there to care for us. They have no empathy for us. They are there to breed soldiers, and we are part of that program. And so what I recall, during our regression hypnosis, James, was that they would pretty much put us into virtual reality simulations that were indistinguishable from reality, and they would pretty much, in one simulation, we would have to kill a puppy. In another simulation, we would have to kill our parents, and it would be a continued loop of where it happens, and then we have to do it again and again, and it felt real every single time, as to make us these completely remorseless, pretty much they made us into psychopaths. That's where I especially remember from that program was that, of course, also the torture. There was lots of torture, mental and physical torture. I don't know if I can talk about it on YouTube, but I think you can probably guess what I mean by cages and electric shock therapy. Not therapy. That's what they called it. They called it therapy, but I saw.
Why don't you go a little bit more into electroshock? Did they actually put the needles under your fingernails and electrocute you? or what was there a different way?
Yeah, no, yes, there was. It was under the fingernails, which doesn't sound painful, but it's tremendously painful. Even just the needle by itself, going. So sorry, let me rephrase that again, because you asked me a question. Sorry. So the electric shock. I'm going to call it electric shock torture. When you envision a situation like that, just needles going under your fingernails, it doesn't seem that it doesn't seem like it hurts that much, but just that alone is tremendously painful. But then when you add the electric shocks, my God, you feel it throughout your entire body, and it. I've seen children vomit after grown men cry. I've seen, yeah, it is definitely one of the worst types of torture there probably is. It's incredibly painful, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to traumatize you in order to better utilize you as a soulless killing machine.
Okay, go back to the orphanage. Um, was that actually a cover memory, or was that taken? Were you taken outside of time, re-age, or was that actually in this timeline here and now?
So this was me, and sorry, I gotta keep having to
Or yeah,
remember.
just
Okay.
talk about mention the orphanage.
So the Monarch program that I was in when I was from time I was 6 till the time I was probably 12 or 13. Um, this actually happened in my physical body, the physical vessel that I sit before this camera and before James in right now. They did not have to re-age me. They did not have to send me back in time. What they did in order to cover it was they told pretty much my parents and everybody, any concerned adult around me, that I was going to a boarding school for the gifted. So therefore, it provided them enough cover to do what they will with me. And by the time that I was taken out, and I haven't completely uncovered the memories yet, but I do actually have. I do think that it's possible that the reason that they actually let me go and is because they decided that I wasn't up to snuff somehow, or I was somehow uh, what's the term that I'm thinking about? I wouldn't function in the way that they quite wanted me to. Therefore, what they decided to do is they decided to replace my memories of the Monarch training program with memories of a normal boarding school, gifted boarding school program. So instead of remembering, being strapped to a trip chair and having to open portals for 75 hours, what I remember is playing dodgeball and, laughing on bunk beds with friends.
How come you failed the program? And also, do you remember any Nazi personnel, such as flags or like swastikas or the eagle symbol? Answer that full sentence.
So I, okay, wait. When I say that they decided to let me go because they thought I was not functioning properly for the program, I'm not exactly sure why that came about. Um, some might hear that and think that I'm characterizing it as I failed the program, but I don't. I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I think it's possible that perhaps due to um, my nature, I am pretty combative and anti-authoritarian. So that program probably didn't gel with me, especially by the time that once I hit 13, I can definitely imagine being extremely rebellious to the point where no matter how much money and time invested in me becoming a killing machine, it wasn't worth keeping me in that program. But I do remember being specifically under the tutelage of Paul Serene. Like I said, Mr. Beast was in our program as well. It was an elite, 12 elite members in the class from the same class that we started with. A lot of kids died in that class that we started with when I was when I was 6 until the time I was 13. Tons of kids died, but we were the top ranking kids in that class of hundreds. What I remember is I was directly brought up by Kevin Spacey's clone, Paul Serene. I was trained by him. I was told that I was special, and I know that I was special at that time, especially compared to the rest. I was very adept at what I was doing. Otherwise, it is interesting, actually. There were quite a lot of people around who were whispering about Nazis not liking me to be in the special place that I was. People who, from Kruger, who thought I didn't quite gel well with what they wanted. People from Notwaffen, they couldn't quite accept me, just due to my ethnicity and skin complexion. So perhaps that's what led to me being, as you say, let go.
Did you notice any other Black, Latino, or Asian kids, minorities in the program?
Yeah, well,
Answer that in a full sentence.
yeah, sorry, I gotta keep remembering that. That being said, there was, especially in the beginning, quite a diverse group. By standards of what you would usually see in personnel in the secret space program. Compared to that, obviously, it was quite a diverse group. Meaning, you have one or three of many different races of people, scattered around hundreds, of course. I actually do remember there was that one actress, Zeldana, I think that's her name, and I think she was part of it. She was in the Spider-Man movie, and she's quite a few. Maybe it was her clone. I'm not sure. But when it comes to the races of people, I think, as horrible as a person Paul Serene is, I think he's what you can characterize him almost like a hardcore libertarian in a way, where he really doesn't, even worse than, like, extremely hardcore, to the point where it's like he's almost a fascist in a lot of ways, where he doesn't care about human life whatsoever, but he also doesn't care what your skin color is. So maybe that's the only good thing about Paul Serene, that comes from him.
Can you comment about your classmates? Were you technically friends, or was it extremely competitive, or to the point where they basically wanted you all to fight with each other all the time?
So I remember our class, especially what happened by the time, I'm pretty sure this happened around the time I was like 7 or 8. What happened is there was 12 of us that ranked the highest out of everybody else in the program, and we were pretty much put in a top elite special program, and it was fiercely competitive. Of course, because we had a rank assigned to each of us. So based off of how you do each week, you can rise or fall in the ranks. And let me tell you, you don't want to be at rank 12, because rank 12 can be replaced, and they can be killed, right? and they can be put into situations for not doing as well as the rest that is worse than being killed. So it was fiercely competitive. Of course, we spent so much time together that we did form some sort of kinship, but by that time we were so traumatized by our MK Ultra programming that we were basically soulless. We were almost incapable of having actual genuine friendships, you know. And it's really sad because we were all kids and we were manipulated into that situation, put into a situation that we were formed kind of like a child soldier in Africa can do horrendous things. It's the same thing. You hear these things, you think, how can a 7-year-old do this? It's not nature, it's nurture, and that's the way that they nurtured us, which sounds a lot less harmless than it actually was.
So, can you comment about what you, or maybe Mr. Beast, or maybe the people in your group were all being groomed for? Unless maybe it was all different for each person.
So I realized later on, pretty much once I started watching James Ring's channel, and I started by listening to the episode with Captain Randy Kramer, that I have memories that kind of align with going ons in and what people are talking about in the secret space program. And what I realized actually is that also what I unlocked was that I was also used, not necessarily in the special division the Montauk division. I was taken, I was cloned, and my clones with my consciousness inside of them were used pretty much as like kamikaze pilots. We would be put into situations that involved inevitable death, extreme danger, to the point where you would feel sorry for even an android in a situation like that. So I'm not particularly sure what they were grooming me for. Part of that division, the Monarch division under the tutelage of Paul Serene, because I never got there. But I do know that my clones were used as slaves. For example, one time we were sent pretty much between, sent between Neptune and the Kuiper Belt, and there was this large installation that we were sent to, and it was owned by Draco Reptilians. They used this large installation that was like 5,000 kilometers in diameter. They used it as a living space while they did experiments, and they also did space mining operations. This installation, it was guarded by a series of drones that shot lasers, and we were sent there pretty much on a stealth mission to avoid these drones, avoid their lasers, and to land on the installation, because on the installation were artifacts that they had that Monarch and other space programs, what I was telling you earlier, it was like a joint effort between all of these different groups. They wanted to change these artifacts, the Draco Reptilian artifacts, into technologies. So we were sent there, and the whole time our platoon is completely being demolished. You know, it was extremely dangerous. We needed jeeps that were delivered on these spacecrafts in order to drive across this long, expansive installation and gather these minerals and these artifacts, and the whole time avoiding lasers, and then we have to be replaced. When we die, I actually didn't die, and the whole thing lasted like 18 years, but so many people died and they just were replaced, and they would get someone else, a clone of someone, or someone on a 20, they would do a 20 and backwards one, replace them, and it was just, as much as we were being hammered by these lasers, it was just the sheer inhumanity to man was also displayed by Monarch, who did not care, who just thought of us as cannon fodder.
Was this on the surface of Jupiter?
No, but I do have a memory of being on Jupiter. So
Where was this located?
this was located between the Kuiper Belt and Neptune.
So like on an asteroid.
No, it was located on a large installation. It was like what's it called? A Stanford Torus, which is a design that they say has never been built, but it is built. It's this large, almost like it's like a base, pretty much, built by the Draco reptilians. But I do have a memory equally as grueling on Jupiter, which resulted actually in a stalemate with the Draco reptilians, where we pretty much had to be diplomatic towards one another because the atmosphere was so incongruous to support their life, and also the continued battles. We were both losing so much manpower and materials that we ended up having a stalemate in diplomacy.
Okay. So you actually were. You can't confirm you were on the surface of Jupiter.
Yeah,
And
of course.
were you in a suit to help
So-
you breathe?
So we were in what we had. One was a suit that had a form of energy shielding. So and also we had pretty much a material that allowed us one to, because Jupiter, of course, is the gravity on Jupiter is 6 times that of the gravity on Earth. So we needed, on top of our suits that absorb damage and allowed us to breathe and live within that the upper and lower atmosphere of Jupiter, we needed exoskeletons, but also not necessarily just exoskeletons. We needed enhanced exoskeletons that were able to carry our weight within that gravity. These large metallic exoskeletons. So just even in our suits alone, I remember actually one time we were wearing the same suit with one of my clone alters who he used a sort of a psionic samurai katana, and he was pretty much, he was in a galaxy where we were fighting insectoids. But because of the atmosphere and because of life on that planet, we couldn't actually use our exoskeletons. So we had to use just our suits, and we had to use our enhanced biological components and rely on that to fight the insectoids who would hide in this. It was a jungle planet, so they were hiding in the jungle. And we had to rely on hand-to-hand combat. I particularly liked my psionic katana. I liked my 2 daggers. I had a form of EMP that I could take out their technologies with. It was an EMP like missile, and pretty much what we had to do actually in this scenario. It was actually very cruel to the ecosystem of this planet. We actually turned it into a nuclear winter because we had to use the fuel cells within our spaceships, and we were able to convert it into a nuclear bomb because there were all these insectoids in the jungle. When you think about like Vietnam, where Charlie is in the jungle, and even though we have all of this manpower and capabilities, we can't smoke them out. So we had to smoke them out with a very dangerous form of herbicide and nuclear bombs. And it actually got to the point the whole planet was completely destroyed, where they couldn't even come out of their bases anymore to even build ships, because from what I understand, they were planning to actually come to our solar system and to take over Earth, but they couldn't even get out of their ships to build. Or not ships, excuse me. They couldn't even get out of their bases to build ships that would carry them to come. So we completely decimated their the insecticide capabilities, particularly in that galaxy.
Can you describe the appearance of these insectoids? Weight, color, height?
Oh, um, so when you think about a lot of these negative ET types, I keep saying insectoids. I don't know why I keep saying that, but it's insectoids. When you think about the appearance of these things, they have a very Lovecraftian element aspect to them, where the whole thing that H.P. Lovecraft constantly wrote about when he talked about monsters is the unimaginable. It's you look at this thing that's staring at you in the face, and you even though you're looking at a giant insect, that's what you're looking at. You can't comprehend what you're looking at, whether it was green or brown or purple or yellow. It's none of that sticks because you're looking at something that's so otherworldly that it's beyond human comprehension. I don't think that actually we were programmed to be able to look at something like that and actually be able to describe it. It's the indescribable.
All right. Well, before we go into some of these other experiences, let's go back to. I think we should go back to Paul Serene.
Mhm.
So did you actually physically interact with him?
So yes, like I was saying, so from the time that I was sick, oh, excuse me, sorry, I, you got to switch batteries?
In just a second here, and you like a overheating thing, which I've never seen before. I can do it now, or
Do you want to just do it real quick?
yeah, I can do it real quick.
Yeah, sorry about that.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. So let's go back to Paul. How about let's just go back to Paul Serene. Maybe you can comment a little bit about in this lifetime, Kevin Spacey is basically a PDO. So maybe mention something like that, then go into Paul Serene.
I can't say pedal right on.
Maybe he had a preference for children.
Okay. Okay. I was talking earlier actually about Paul Serene, as you know, who is the clone of Kevin Spacey. And what people know is that Kevin Spacey has a particular affinity for people of very short stature and naivety. And from what I understand, Paul Serene, due to his philosophy, he totally agreed with the buying and selling of anything and anyone. And he totally believed in using people in any way that he could, because he did not have any empathy for people, and he saw no difference between some android that he contracted to be made and the development of a child into whatever have you avenue that he so pleased that child to function for him. And he expected complete obedience. I have seen personally kids, even the kids in my elite class, crying, coming out of doors, hidden doorways, crying, and him tailing behind them. So this is the type of man that he is, unfortunately.
What can you comment about his personality? Was he very similar to Kevin Spacey, like we see in Hollywood, how he portrays himself?
So Paul Serene, the thing about him is he was very sassy in a lot of ways. He was theatrical. He liked to make sarcastic jokes. He liked to seem cool and above it. But the truth is, he was soulless to the core, and Uh, he was probably one of the most repulsive beings I have ever encountered in my life, and it's unfortunate that in unlocking my memories, I've unlocked memories of his extremely undesirable characteristics.
Did he ever mention to you his age?
Paul Serene's age. So Paul Serene, I think he was around probably a little younger, or yeah, a little younger than Kevin Spacey, who would be somewhere, I'm guessing, in his 60s. But I mean, he just looked like a middle-aged man to me. The same way that I've seen Kevin Spacey on television movies since I was a child, and he's always looked like a middle-aged man to me. So,
Okay. According to ACL records, he's over 10,000 years old.
oh wow. So, what I assume actually is that he has the appearance of a middle-aged man, and so.
Okay. Well, how about this? Let's go into, I guess, how about mention a little bit about what was Paul Serene's goal or Monarch's goal for you? What were you being groomed for? Or what do you think you're being groomed for?
I believe when I was part of the special program, special Monarch program with Mr. Beast around, and also 12 other children, that we were all being groomed to be pretty much elite killers. I do have distinct memories of even in my own physical body. They would give me some sort of drug. I don't remember the name of the drug, and I was able to just look at a photo of a target and make their head explode from any distance. Doesn't matter where they were. I think I was being groomed to be an elite assassin.
I think the drug, at least, what was the series on TV? I know it's Cortexiphan. I forgot. Fringe. The
Mhm.
Fringe series. So, can you confirm if that was the case? Cortexiphan? Does that seem familiar?
I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think that the name of the drug was, in fact, what was it? Cortexiphan? Yeah. So I do remember perhaps some sort of vial with some sort of name like that. I remember COR.
What about Massive Dynamic? Is that a name that ever came up? Is that familiar to you?
No, I'm
Because that
not
was in the
sure.
French series, but Massive Dynamic is basically like Monarch, but it's the UK version. They work together. But okay.
Yeah, I don't think I had any dealings with massive dynamic, but I do remember on one occasion, one of the kids who were in my class, they opened up a portal, and out came Tom Cruise, or complete Tom Cruise look-like. And from what I understood, that was the leader of Umbrella. So, and he met with Paul Serene.
And did you witness anything they discussed?
No, I didn't witness it, but we were all. I remember pretty much we were lined up, and Paul Serene, as well as I remember that we were all lined up, and that Paul Serene, as well as Tom Cruise, Tom Cruise's lookalike, who is the leader of Umbrella, we were lined up, and they were pretty much inspecting us, and Paul Serene was kind of showing off pretty much his new toys or something. Like, look at these are my elite assassins, I suppose, or this is the new class of. Because I mean, there was billions of dollars spent on each and every single one of us in order to make us that elite at a very young age, and I'm sure that many of these people who were in my class were actually they continue to go on with the program, and they're being used in who knows how many different ways. But I have lost contact with all of them, unfortunately.
Okay. Do you have any other Anything else of Umbrella? Any other experiences to mention? Maybe the zombies?
So
Is that a complete sentence?
I had a clone, one of mine that I've unlocked memories because I have some sort of psychic connection with them, and it almost feels like their experience or my experiences. I remember that that clone actually was fighting zombies and vampires in the universe that Umbrella controls, the parallel universe, and there was also Yetis that they were fighting, and yeah, no, it was so the zombies they were actually able to speak. Some of them, I remember one of them pleading for its life, and then my clone kind of stepping back, but then it still trying to attack my clone because I guess somehow, for some reason, there was a malfunction with my clone at that particular moment where it felt some remorse for this disgusting monster. But you know, of course, it was a trick. But I think that was the last bit of any kind of consciousness that it might have had. But otherwise, most of my clones are, from what I understand, just thoughtless, remorseful, unremorseful killing machines as well.
Did any of your clones ever get changed into a zombie?
Um, that I'm not sure of. I'm not sure.
Okay. What about vampires? Do you recall any scenarios fighting vampires? And if so, answer that full sentence.
When I was a child, I'm pretty sure that I did encounter a vampire while I was being trained in the underground Monarch City. There was a particular character that obviously had all the attributes that are, you know, they're the same attributes that people know about vampires. It revolves into garlic, the teeth, of course. But this particular thing, this is something I learned about vampires actually, is that just like this guy, they can't help but count. So it's almost like Rain Man. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen that movie, James. Rain Man with the toothpicks. If you drop a thing of toothpicks down on the ground and a vampire is nearby, that vampire will count the toothpicks. And I remember this very strange, surreal encounter. We were in the mess hall, and this vampire is walking with Paul Serene, and he's showing this vampire around, and one of the kids bringing trays around with the food, got bumped into, and then this plate smashes, and it has like peas and corn and mashed potatoes on it, and there's this vampire jumps to the ground, starts counting the corn, starts counting the peas, starts counting all the shards of glass from the plate. So I guess that's a tell for a vampire, but that's the only one time I've actually met a vampire.
Okay, I don't even know how to question that. All right, great. Okay, so I guess we're done with the umbrella stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, we can move on. Well, I had some other. So the other questions I had were, I'll let you choose what you want to work on. Describe the VR. Do you remember what the VR training hardware looks like? The machine or the trip chairs?
So so while we were being trained during the Monarch training, there was a lot of VR sessions like I described earlier. Where we'd be put into these scenarios, these virtual reality scenarios that were indistinguishable from reality. Once you enter it, you don't know where you are. You think that everything feels exactly like reality. All five senses are heightened actually as well. From what I remember, and I don't actually have it in the back of my head anymore, but I remember that actually it was almost like a needle being stuck right in the back, right in the pocket, right here on the skull. And then this feeling of complete ecstasy, and then just going into this virtual reality simulation. again, virtual reality, it felt like reality. I remember that. On other occasions, I do remember goggles. I actually think that due to this timeline and what I'm explaining, like 20-ish years ago, when, I was a kid, that was an earlier version of the VR that they later decided that is okay for the consumer public to use. But I don't think that they've quite gotten to the point that they want to share the needle experience with the general public. I don't know. I'm not sure if anybody would want to buy that.
Okay. So what's your next other question? How about time travel missions? Were you ever sent out in comment that full sentence?
So I remember one particular mission where, for one thing, I did do a few 20 and backs, but I do remember one time being actually stuck in a time loop where pretty much it was our ship. I forget which version of myself this happened to, but us crashing into an asteroid, and then after we crashed and we all died in our ship, it would just restart, and then it would be 12 hours would go by, and then it would happen again. And I think actually we were stuck in that loop for 75 years, but somehow we managed, because we kept getting extreme deja vu, that we ended up coming together and realizing that something was up. It got to the point where deja vu was basically memories, even though we were stuck in a time loop. It was just so long. We got out of it, and right afterwards, memories wiped, age regressed, all that. It's like none of it ever happened.
Yeah, I know Monarch's doing it. They're purposely involved in a time loop between April 2000 and April 2020, and they're going back and forth to reset right before the World Trade Center went down, and they're going back in time trying to reset the timeline so they can win this so-called temporal war, so that it would be favorable to them. But every time they keep losing,
Mm-hmm.
so they can keep doing those time loops over and over. But I don't think they're gonna win.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, okay. I have. How about some alters? Do you think you have alters, and have you what are their names, and maybe describe times you might have blacked out, if that's ever happened. It doesn't always happen with alters though. Go ahead.
So I am fairly convinced that during my training, I was my personality and my consciousness was it was split through like trauma, um, kind of like a what's it called, multiple personalities. I had different alters of my personality split, and I mean some of those can be triggered. Some of them are wrath. I actually associate some of those with the 7 deadly sins, gluttony, rage, wrath, you name it. But from my most clear understanding of what happened, which has come from deep introspection, meditation, working with my friend who's a clairvoyant, and my session with you, James, the hypnosis regression session. From what I remember most clearly is that I do have many different clones of myself with parts of my consciousness uploaded into those clones. I remember missing time, like I described earlier, with the flashing white light, and then waking up and 8 minutes passed, and kind of being disoriented and having wounds on myself under my lips and within the webs of my fingers, and also inside of under my nails. Also other various wounds around my body, aches and pains, and flashes, memories of just people operating on me and me screaming for dear life. And I think that's part of the cloning process. And yeah, it really did traumatize me because I did lose every single time they cloned me. I lose a bit of myself in that, in that process. But I'm pretty sure it slowed down significantly. I haven't really had that as much, but especially from my late teens till my mid 20s to late 20s, they would. I think they were consistently doing it. Now it's petered out to maybe abducting me maybe once, twice a year. Um,
Okay. Did they ever trick you into a contract? And maybe you can also comment if you still consent to them. Is there like a part of you that still feels loyal to them, or I mean, you can just go on camera and say I don't want them to do this to me anymore, or something like that.
okay, hold on. Okay, all right. Out of everything that I've shared with you today, James, and to people watching at home, there's one thing I want to stress. Anybody who's within this secret space program, they don't choose to be put into this. They are victims of nefarious, disgusting people who abduct them and use them for their own means. I have never consented to this, and nor do I think anybody else would or has ever done so. And I do thank you, James, for providing this platform for people to share their experiences and putting this information out there. And it's a great service that you're providing. So.
Okay, thank you. So do you think you're active right now? And answer that in a full statement.
So I'm not sure that I will ever be unshackled from the secret space program, and particularly Monarch, and the grasp, the clutches of Paul Serene, Kevin Spacey's clone, or I'm not sure how exactly, if he's the clone or Paul Serene's the clone, but I'm sure I'll never escape, because I'm pretty sure until the day I die, they will continue to utilize me in any way they see fit, even if it's for their own twisted entertainment. When I'm 90, they might induct me one day to activate me in order so I can tap dance or something. Who knows?
Well, are they still targeting you in the here and now as an adult? Like trying to make your life miserable, and targeting your family, your friends, trying to ruin your finances or your health? Answer that in a full statement. Or maybe everything's just fine. If that's the case, I applaud you. You're very fortunate.
I feel like, I feel like these I like to think of them as demons. They cast a negative shadow over my life, and they continue to, and they always have, from pretty much taking my father's DNA and then enhancing it and bending it to their will, and then putting it in my mother. They've always had control over my life, and these people have undeniably casted a black cloud over my existence, and I find it very, very. I don't even want to say difficult. I'll never forgive them for what they've done to me.
Do you have a network around your family or friends that are supportive of you and what you've been through, or are they even aware, or you just keep this closeted?
Yeah, this is the benefit of James, your channel, is you provide a place for people to talk about these situations, because most people don't get it, and it's very, very difficult to share these experiences without someone wanting to throw you in the loony bin or something. But as we both know, this is all very real. Just people, there's no there's no secret space program rights group, as you know.
Okay, so I guess the last question well, at least on my list is the cloning labs. I don't think we went into that one. Can you describe if you remember what the cloning labs look like?
So I remember, James, during our hypnosis regression, actually you guided me while I was astral projecting, and I was able, with your help, to actually see the cloning labs, and I actually saw my clones. They were all in vats. They were inoperational at that time, and pretty much they were just vessels. They weren't human in any way. They weren't conscious. They were just meat sacks. At that time, there was different ones. Pretty sure I've seen some with cyborg enhancements, other ones that were cross breed, cross hybrids, chimeras of like animal and ET DNA. And it's just like a mad scientist, just lining up his collection. So that's what I remember from seeing all of my clones, and being able to, yeah.
Do you remember the name of the programs or projects, specific projects or sub projects? I guess Monarch, what had you under?
See, I have to. I don't remember because it's I
Answer
do
that
have
full
to.
sentence.
I don't remember the specific names of any of the programs really. Especially the time when I was with Monarch, I was pretty young, and of course they wiped my memories. The cloning stuff, same, wiped my memories. Have just begun a few months ago unlocking all of this stuff. The particulars, as in like code names, I'm also pretty sure as just as a tool of Monarch. I'm fairly certain that I would never have been privy to knowing any of this stuff. I was just just a tool. Why would you tell a tool code names of operations?
Do you remember the names of your alters?
My alters, for example, nameless. They're not regarded as anything other than a tool. So why name a tool? Do you name a screwdriver? So they that's just what they are.
Okay, so let's wrap this up by I'll give you an opportunity to send a message to Paul Serene. I'm not saying he's probably gonna listen to this, but if you could, what would your message to him be? Into that full sentence.
If anything, I'm thankful for this opportunity to share my story, because I do have a special message for Paul Serene. Go to hell, and I hope you burn. You're a terrible person. You're not even human, and